A convoy winds its way through the streets of Muscat, cutting through the soft afternoon haze of the Omani capital. Black sedans gleaming under the desert sun move in precision, escorted by police motorbikes and lined by waving flags of red, white, green and the bold crimson of Turkey. Above, a drone camera captures the scene from high over the city, the motorcade gliding toward the royal quarter that houses the iconic Al Alam Palace. At the heart of the convoy is Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, completing the final leg of his three-nation Gulf tour. Beside him in the receiving car is Sultan Haitham bin Tariq Al Said, the ruler of Oman, a man known for quiet diplomacy and measured leadership in a volatile region. Their meeting in Muscat marks more than ceremony. It marks the careful realignment of two nations seeking common ground amid a shifting Middle East. The Al Alam Palace soon comes into view, a burst of gold and turquoise architecture framed by the stony cliffs of old Muscat. It stands not merely as a royal residence, but as a national emblem of Oman's stability and continuity, where diplomacy often takes shape far from the noise of global politics. As the cars pull in, the scene slows to a graceful rhythm. The palace gates open, revealing rows of Omani royal guards in ceremonial uniforms, red, gold and green, their rifles gleaming in the light. Trumpets sound and the rhythmic march of the honor guard fills the courtyard. The two leaders emerge. President Erdogan steps forward, his expression steady and formal. Sultan Haitham greets him with a warm but measured handshake. For both, this is a moment of symbolism. Turkey looking southward once again, and Oman reaffirming its role as the region's quiet mediator. The anthems of both nations play in sequence. First Oman, then Turkey. The flags rise against the clear sky, two emblems fluttering side by side, one representing a centuries-old sultanate known for diplomacy, the other a rising regional power straddling Europe and Asia. The red of Turkey's crescent and the white-green of Oman's flag form a visual echo. Different histories, similar intent. Around them, delegations wait in neat rows, ministers, advisors and military officers. The atmosphere is cordial, deliberate and steeped in protocol. The Sultan introduces key Omani officials, the foreign minister, the commerce minister and the head of the Omani Investment Authority. President Erdogan responds in kind, presenting his senior aides, energy executives and defense industry officials. Handshakes follow, smiles for the cameras, then quiet exchanges of diplomatic courtesies. Behind the formal gestures lies the purpose of this visit, to reinforce the bridge between Ankara and Muscat in trade, security and diplomacy. This visit to Oman concludes Erdogan's tour of the Gulf, which began in Kuwait and continued through Qatar. Each stop carried its own message. In Kuwait, energy and investment dominated the agenda. In Doha, defense and joint strategy took center stage. But in Muscat, the message is more nuanced. It's about balance, neutrality and partnership through moderation. Oman and Turkey share a long, if understated, relationship. Both nations have avoided the extremes of regional politics, preferring conversation to confrontation. In the last decade, their bilateral trade has expanded steadily, surpassing $2 billion, driven by construction, manufacturing and energy projects. Turkish companies are already involved in Omani ports and industrial zones, while Muscat sees Ankara as a reliable partner for technology and tourism development. Inside the Al Alam Palace, meetings begin. The leaders take their seats across a long table draped in royal blue and white. Between them stand miniature flags and a pair of crystal water glasses. Interpreters lean in, documents are exchanged, cameras briefly click, and then the doors close for private talks. Observers in Ankara and Muscat say this visit signals a strategic alignment of pragmatists. For Oman, maintaining balance between its Gulf neighbours, Iran and the West, has long been its diplomatic identity. For Turkey, engaging the Gulf represents both an economic necessity and a regional re-entry after years of friction. Erdogan's Gulf tour comes at a time when Turkey is recalibrating its foreign policy. Gone are the days of ideological competition. Today's Ankara seeks investors, not disputes. And the Gulf, flush with capital and looking for regional partners, has extended a receptive hand. Oman, in particular, offers something Turkey values deeply: credibility as a neutral mediator. Muscat has hosted secret talks between adversaries, including early rounds of negotiations between Tehran and Washington. In an age where quiet diplomacy is rare, Oman's approach complements Turkey's ambition to serve as a power of mediation rather than confrontation. Beyond politics, the economic layer is crucial. Both sides are expected to announce memoranda of understanding on investment, shipping and tourism. Turkish construction firms, already building in Doha and Riyadh, now look to Muscat's Vision 2040 programme for opportunities in new ports, logistics centres and residential infrastructure. Energy cooperation is another key point. Turkey, which imports nearly all of its oil and gas, is seeking diversified sources to reduce reliance on traditional suppliers. Oman, an emerging liquefied natural gas exporter with expanding pipeline projects, fits naturally into that strategy. The leaders also discuss regional security. With tension periodically flaring in the Strait of Hormuz, maritime coordination becomes essential. Oman's navy already collaborates closely with international partners on patrol missions, while Turkey's growing naval industry is producing vessels suited for such cooperation. A joint training program or maritime information exchange could emerge from these talks, officials suggest. For Muscat, this meeting is equally significant. Oman is cautiously expanding its partnerships beyond traditional allies like the United Kingdom and the United States, aligning more actively with middle powers such as Turkey and India. This diversification, economic, political and strategic, is part of Sultan Haitham's long-term effort to prepare Oman for a post-oil future while maintaining its diplomatic independence. In the broader Gulf context, Erdogan's trip underscores Ankara's return as a pragmatic partner after years of estrangement. Not long ago, Turkey's relationship with several Gulf monarchies was strained over ideological differences, but recent years have brought reconciliation with the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and now renewed warmth in Oman. Analysts note that Turkey's engagement is driven as much by economics as by geopolitics. Facing inflation pressures at home and a need for foreign investment, Ankara sees the Gulf as a vital source of liquidity and trade stability. In return, Gulf capitals welcome Turkish manufacturing, defence exports and construction expertise. For Erdogan, this diplomacy is also about image. He seeks to project Turkey not as a regional agitator, but as a stabilising power. In his speeches throughout the tour, he has emphasised cooperation over confrontation, saying Turkey's future lies in shared prosperity with friends in the Gulf. Oman's Sultan Haitham, too, embodies that philosophy. Since assuming the throne in 2020, he has reaffirmed Oman's founding principles of non-alignment and dialogue. His reign has been marked by modest reform, fiscal discipline, and a sustained effort to keep Oman out of regional entanglements while playing host to quiet mediation. The visuals of today's visit reflect exactly that spirit. Wide shots show Erdogan and Sultan Haitham walking side by side under the palace's golden arches, speaking briefly before entering the hall. The calmness of the moment contrasts sharply with the volatility elsewhere in the region, from Gaza to the Red Sea, from Lebanon to Yemen. Both men understand the power of optics. A handshake in Muscat may not dominate headlines like summits in Riyadh or Washington, but in the world of Gulf diplomacy, subtle gestures often carry more weight than public statements. As talks continue, their delegations discuss tourism, education exchange and cultural cooperation. Oman seeks to attract Turkish visitors and investors to its growing coastal resorts. Turkey, in turn, offers scholarships and technology partnerships through its state universities and defence academies. The discussions are comprehensive, touching every sector where cooperation can translate into long-term growth. Later in the day, the palace courtyard comes alive again. A brief farewell ceremony is held before the motorcade departs. The two leaders stand together, smiling for the press, the Sultan slightly nodding as Erdogan expresses gratitude for Oman's hospitality. Their words are polite but purposeful, a promise of continued dialogue, economic collaboration and mutual respect. As the motorcade rolls out, the camera pans to capture Muscat's old fort, its sandstone towers overlooking the bay. The evening light softens the city's edges, the sea glimmering beyond the palace gates, fishermen's boats bobbing in the harbour. The imagery feels deliberate, almost cinematic, echoing Oman's timeless duality, ancient and modern, rooted yet outward-looking. From Kuwait to Qatar and finally Oman, Erdogan's Gulf tour tells a single story that Turkey is repositioning itself as a dependable partner in a rapidly changing Middle East. In Muscat, that story gains a new chapter written in the language of quiet diplomacy and shared economic ambition. The success of such visits cannot be measured in press releases or joint statements alone. It lies in the consistency of follow-up, in the building of trust through smaller practical collaborations, port projects, student exchanges, or trade fairs. Those, more than words, define enduring partnerships. For Oman, the visit reaffirms its relevance as a bridge between the Arab world and non-Arab neighbours, between East and West, between large powers and small. For Turkey, it signals maturity, a recognition that influence in the region depends not on pressure, but on presence. As dusk settles over Muscat, the final images show the Omani and Turkish flags rippling side by side. The palace gleams under floodlights, its golden columns reflected on the marble floor. A sense of calm lingers, diplomacy done the Omani way, discreet, patient, and effective. The convoy departs once more, vanishing into the city's narrow streets lined with whitewashed walls and palm trees. Behind it remains the resonance of the day's message, one of cooperation, balance, and renewal. From the quiet courtyards of Al Alam Palace, a new dialogue has begun, one that may shape the next decade of Turkish Gulf relations. And in the language of diplomacy, few moments speak louder than a handshake sealed beneath the watchful eyes of history.